and welcome. I see a few people still kind of rolling in, so that's great. We've got quite a few attendees here today, and I'll just start with the introduction so that because we've got an extensive webinar for you today about improving your photography for social media. So while people still join on, we'll go through our intro here. So hi, and welcome to Improve Your Photography for Social Media. This webinar is brought to you by your local digital service squad. The Digital Main Street program is brought to you by FedDev Ontario, the province of Ontario, the Ontario BIA Association, along with the Toronto Association of BIAs. Here, specifically in Simcoe County, South Georgian Bay, here in Simcoe, South Georgian Bay, the program is managed by your South Georgian Bay Small Business Enterprise Center with additional support from the County of Simcoe, the town of Collingwood, and the town of Blue Mountains. We're really grateful for all of their support in making this possible. If you've not reached out yet to your local digital service squad to learn more about the digital marketing supports available to you through Digital Main Street and beyond, you can book a 30-minute consult to get started, and the link will be in the chat box, which I will post there in a minute. We're really excited to be here with you today, and if you have not been on a Zoom webinar, just to recap, we can't hear you or see you, which can be good in that we won't hear any background noise or be distracted with any of that. But if you do have any questions, there is the question answer button that you can click, and feel free at any point to drop in your questions. I'm sure you will have lots of those. And just to introduce our speakers today, we've got Karen Gibson from Karen Gibson Graphic Design, who's also a talented photographer. You want to say hi, Karen?
Hi, how is everybody today? Welcome I'm glad you joined us.
And also we've got Sam Evans from Sam Evans Media, also a talented media professional photographer, all things camera related. And myself, Ben Frisch, I'm the Digital Service Squad team lead with the Simcoe South Georgian Bay Digital Service Squad, also a media professional as well. So we bring a lot to the table here as your Digital Service Squad, but also as some pretty talented, I would say, it's pretty talented media professionals, camera folks. So without further ado, here's Karen to take it away with the presentation.
Welcome again, everybody. I'm glad you could join us today. Sam's going to help me today because hopefully he's going to correct me if I make any mistakes, or he's probably just going to add some further info to what we're going to share with you today. I'm a little bit nervous, so bear with me. Anyways, without further ado, the best camera is the one that you have, and that's your smartphone. Everyone carries their phone with them everywhere they go. If you're an avid photographer, maybe get a good phone that provides good quality images.
Yeah, and one of the things just to add there, Karen, is obviously, the amount of money that I spend on cameras every year, getting the latest and greatest big DSLRs. There's so frustrating the number of times when you'll see somebody just take a snap with an iPhone in a split second, and that image is pretty much equal to what it would take minutes to set up with a DSLR, and then edit in post afterwards. And for most people's needs, if you're only going to be posting to Instagram, and it's never going to be seen on a big image like print resolution on a billboard, then yeah, that thing in your pocket is gonna meet all of your needs for some pictures. It's incredible what our phones slash cameras slash high-speed computers can do nowadays.
So true, Sam. Having the best camera phone doesn't automatically mean, though, that you can take the best pictures. We hope to share some tips and techniques that will improve your photography or social media. Okay. Composition is a way of guiding the viewer's eye towards the most important elements of your work, sometimes in a very specific order. A good composition can help make a masterpiece even out of the dullest objects and subjects in the plainest of environments. The right photo composition can easily take a photo from forgettable to amazing. Think about the kinds of subjects you shoot and how you can apply the following tips to your next social media piece. Sorry, I am tripping over my teeth a little bit. I apologize. Okay, one of the composition biggest rules is the rule of thirds. Your smartphone has a grid built right into it, which will divide your space into 3 columns vertically and 3 columns horizontally. These grid lines, you should have 2 lines running up and down and 2 lines running left to right. Take a look at where those lines intersect. You should place your subject on one of those points. This is called rule of thirds. Using it can be a small change that makes a very big difference to your final image composition.
And you are allowed to break the rules. There'll be a rare occasion where having like the horizon straight across the middle of an image might look better than having 2/3 sky or 2/3 water kind of thing. Yep. But also think about looking space. So looking space is like leaving room for your subject's gaze. So you could have your subject, I don't know if you can see my video, but placed like at the left third of frame, I think, as you guys look at it, looking into the empty space that is the right 2/3 of frame. Or you can break the rules because it's art, so that's what you want to do, and have them in the same third of frame, but looking off screen, which would then highlight everything that's in the background, which might be your store or the focus of the story that you're telling. And one thing that I have to add, because my mum didn't realize, when you have the grid lines up on your phone, that doesn't come out on the final image. That's just for you to look at.
Good point. Yeah, we don't want the lines on the image upset. Next slide. Yep. Another composition element would be leading lines and framing. Leading lines refers to using natural lines or shapes to guide the eye towards your main subject. The key to this photo composition tip is to take a big picture view of the scene you are shooting and to spot the elements that you can use as leading lines. Look for things like rivers, train tracks, doorways, shadows. Get creative. A composition photography principle you'll definitely want to get familiar with is using frames. Almost anything can be used as a frame in your image composition. If you're shooting out in nature, trees are usually used as natural frames for your subject. As you can see in the images here, we've got the trees on either side of that wine glass. And the focal point of the picture is the wine glass and the background sky.
And these lines are everywhere, obviously. Like if you're thinking, how does this pertain to my candle selling business or whatever it might be that you have? You know, if you think about the display shelf that your subject is on, or like the length of a long object, it's probably going to look nicer shot down with these lines fading away rather than just shooting everything square on.
If there's nothing in an image composition to guide the eye, the photo can seem boring or incomplete. By using leading lines or frames in your photo composition, you're creating an element that emphasizes the importance of your main subject in a way that is visually appealing without being distracting or taking away focus. Next slide. Convey depth. To convey depth in your two-dimensional image, you'll want to include objects in the foreground, the middle ground, and background of your composition all at once. Think of an image of a mountain. On its own, the photo may look okay, but if you include a river in the middle and a field in the foreground, you've made your image composition much more interesting. The layers you've created create a sense of depth, which is far more intriguing to the eye than a flat image.
And yeah, you can always add things in close to frame, like we call it dirtying up the lens, where you add something in the foreground that, you know, it's blurry and out of focus, but it forces your eye to engage with what is in focus in the rest of the image elsewhere in the shot. So like in this exact image, you could also change the depth with the zoom function, like the literal length of the lens. If you used a really wide lens from that same spot, then that tree would look further away and you'd see a lot more to the left and the right of frame, which is what we do in real estate. So that tiny spare bedroom looks a lot more habitable.
Awesome. Find an arresting viewpoint. It's amazing how much your image can change as you play around with the viewpoint. Challenge yourself to change your usual viewpoint. Most people just stand there and click, 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 click. This could be as simple as getting low down to the subject or getting above the subject. Look up, look down, and see what you can come up with. It's really interesting if you experiment with that kind of thing. Actually, it's kind of fun. Good composition involves a little bit of trial and error, but the more you challenge yourself with these photography composition tips, the stronger your images will get.
Yeah,
You want to add to that?
Yeah, with art, photography, and marketing, it's all the same trait that you're looking for, which is, you know, the most important thing is standing out from the crowd. Like the general consensus is that we're exposed to between 5,000 and 10,000 different adverts per day. So when somebody's looking at your image, you know, there's just too much competition out there, and the more different that you can be, the more it's going to register with somebody.
And don't forget, the actual subject is your main subject. So whatever you're shooting, just keep that in mind. Like, so if you're shooting a water bottle for an advertisement, make sure that that's what you see. So that's your viewpoint. That is your, I guess, your focal point, your main focal point. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, when it comes to pictures in your smartphone, there's some common aspect ratios to think about. I know it's kind of technical, but another it represents the relationship between the width and the height of an image. The most common aspect ratios of modern digital camera sensors are 3:2 or 4:3. All modern DSLs shoot 3:2 aspect ratio, whereas 4:3 is becoming more popular on by smartphone manufacturers. The 1:1 ratio was common with medium format cameras in the old days, but is pretty much a standard for social media today. It has become popular when Instagram became a sensation for photographers, 1:1 being the square format. 16:9 is the standard for HGTV and motion pictures. Because of this, it looks cinematic. Certain types of shots look particularly beautiful in this ratio. Although when it comes to stills, it is not a widely used aspect ratio, except in a vertical format for your stories, on Facebook and Instagram, because it goes the other way around, right? So it would be 9 by 16.
Yeah, aspect ratios are just a minefield nowadays. It seems every platform you post to has a different kind of best aspect ratio to use. So what I always do is shoot everything in the biggest possible. So it's generally 16 by 9 portrait or landscape. And then you can crop as you upload it to, you could crop it down to 1:1 or by 4:3. But it means you have the full scene to crop from, rather than only taking a square image and then thinking, oh, well, I would like to upload this as a wide, but I can't. If you take the most image you can always make it smaller.
True enough, but the only problem you have to watch in that respect is that if you've shot the image 16 by 9, you have to be careful, because when you do crop it 1:1, that changes the whole look of the image. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and likewise, if you take it 16 by 9 landscape, and then you want to crop it to portrait, you're only going to have a tiny amount of pixels in the middle to crop it from. So if you know that you're going to be uploading it to, say, TikTok, which is very vertical orientated, then take it in that that method. Because yeah, if you're taking a widescreen and trying to make it vertical, or vertical and trying to make that 16 by 9 landscape, it's there's not a lot of pixels left to work with.
Yeah, I'd say too, like we will talk more about that horizontal versus vertical approach, more specifically as it relates to video in our video webinar. I think that is it is a really valid topic to cover, but I do find it tends to be more of an issue when it comes to video. But as Sam and Karen both pointed out, it is still very relevant when it comes to your photography, which direction you hold your camera or your phone.
And if in doubt, take one of each.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Basic techniques. Okay, next slide, please. One of the secrets of good smartphone photography is to make sure that the image quality is sharp. That's the major issue. Your subject needs to be focused to draw attention to it. On a smartphone, it's usually activated with a tap on the screen, on the point where you want the camera to focus. To get the right exposure, in the default Android app, like in my Galaxy, tap once to focus and adjust exposure via the slider that pops up. There'll be a little slider that pops up, and you can see if you put your finger on it and go this way or this way, it'll get darker or lighter. So it'll be either overexposed or underexposed. In the default iPhone camera app, I believe you can tap once to focus and then hold and drag to adjust the exposure. As you can see from the two photographs here, the top photograph is quite blurry, and the photograph below is overexposed. There is nothing worse than blurry or overexposed images. It's better to underexpose, though, an image, as it can always be tweaked in your editing app, because there's much more information in the camera for you to do that.
Yeah, and the most important thing is to clean your lens. That should have been the first thing any of us thought of. Just wipe it in your t-shirt, get the fingerprints off. And also with an iPhone, if you press and hold it, I'm not sure how this works on Android, but it will be a function that's available. If you press and hold, then the AEAF lock will show at the top, and that's auto exposure, autofocus. It's telling you they're now locked. So you could focus on a subject, reframe your image slightly. You need to keep the camera the same distance from the subject, but if you move it left or right to give more background to your subject, then you can still change the exposure, like manually sliding that little sun picture up and down to make it lighter or darker.
The Android works the same. It'll lock its focus.
Okay, cool. And also it means that when you, like if you just tap for focus and exposure and then take a picture, it will, once it's taken that picture, it will auto expose again. So if you're doing something where you want to take a few different pictures with the same settings, if it's on lock, you can just keep taking pictures at that exposure and focus until you tap the screen again. So if you're taking a picture of somebody jumping off a wall, you have, you know, all of those different attempts at it without it changing to autofocus again.
So I can't see anyone on the webinar, but I imagine you've all got your phones out trying this, because I find that I feel like just that really simple tap to focus and set the exposure is one of the most widely unknown kind of simple tips for taking photos with your phone. So definitely, you know, I hope you all have your phones out and trying that out, and especially the lock function too is pretty cool. Now we did have a question. It's kind of specific, and I don't know if either of you have any experience with this, but Grant is asking. Grant asks, which is better, the Samsung camera or Google camera for Android?
Well, it depends on the, well, okay.
I think
always had a Galaxy and it's been awesome. Like, now the iPhone 11 and the Galaxy, they're all about 12 megapixels, I think. So they all shoot pretty good photos now. All I can say is do some research. I think is the best. Every time I get a new phone, I just go on and do some research and just look at the reviews of what other people are saying about the camera in the phone, because they are pretty much all the same. Some can do some maybe on the fly kind of things. Sam?
I'd say none of the above and get the iPhone 12 that's just come out.
Yeah.
Okay,
generally, the newer the item you're buying, the better it's going to be. So if the Samsung equivalent came out 8 months before the Google one came out, then it's likely that Google one is going to be that much better, kind of thing. But it's generally going to be pretty much a much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think what I want to say too is just that, I think what our focus here today is that, we want to stress that it doesn't really matter, what equipment you're using, and with the use of different techniques and just a little bit of expertise, our hope is that you can walk away from this and use a 5-year-old phone to take really good photos.
Yeah,
so
we've been taking pictures with iPhones and Samsungs for years now. If it is that you're using a 5-year-old one, then you just cheat, put it in black and white, and then it'll look good.
There you go. Okay, moving right along.
Moving right along. Look for the best light. Actually, this is best achieved with natural light rather than studio lighting, because natural light can help make your products look the way they do in real life. Products or people or whatever. As an added benefit, natural lighting photography doesn't require a lot of expensive equipment. Dawn and dusk are optimal times to shoot just about anything, from landscapes to portraits to wedding parties. Not only does soft, dewy light radiate on your subject, but you also don't have to worry about shadows or highlights, and everything is evenly lit in sort of a luminous pastel glow. The picture here, as an example, was taken more at dusk. So you can see how the lighting has There's the sort of the pink in the background, and it's softer and sort of overall the same. There's no harsh shadows. On the opposite end of the spectrum, don't be afraid to take photos on cloudy days. The clouds act as one big filter, spreading the light out everywhere, resulting in a soft and even light again. It's really good if you're taking things like I take a lot of nature photography, so I'm shooting flowers and that kind of thing close up, and I shoot with my smartphone most times. The colors seem to be a lot more vibrant, so because you don't get the harshness of the light. Try to avoid direct sunlight as it creates hard shadows and highlights along with squinty eyes, and you don't want that. Instead, shoot in the shade, which diffuses the light, creating a soft light that spreads evenly across your subject again. If you're shooting indoors, do your best to be near a window and avoid putting the subject between you and the window. Instead, put the window beside you and the subject. Okay?
Yeah, it can be that depending what you're shooting, like particularly with a phone, the brighter the day is, often the better picture is, because of the tiny sensor inside doesn't work well in low light. But you know, shooting with the sun can be the best, because if you have the sun behind you, so it's beating down on everything that you're shooting, then you have all of the shadows gone on the wrong side of the object, and it's only your own shadow that you have to worry about. But if you shoot the other way, facing into the sun, you're going to wind up with crazy bright sun or crazy dark shadows. So keep the sun behind you, and that lights everything really well in the scene. The only exception would be if you want the background to be blown out. So often with portrait or product photography, you do it with a light behind so that it gives this glowing edge to the subject and you get a nice lens flare into the camera. But yeah, never shoot with the sun above you. Like lunchtime in the summer, you're going to get dark shadows, like in your eyes from under your brow, and a little Hitler mustache under your nose. So you want the sun at a nice low angle. At this time of year, it's great because the sun is always low, and you get more hours in the day where it's possible compared to in the height of summer.
I just think that, you know, experimenting is the best way to go. Just, you know, just keep taking pictures. If you're into it, just keep taking pictures, and you'll soon find out what's working and what doesn't work.
Yeah, it's free nowadays. You don't have to pay 50 cents per photo developed.
Oh, I love that. I just love that. Delete, 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 delete. Awesome. Awesome invention. Okay, so let's see. All right. When it comes to the smartphone, there is a variety of smartphone modes, and depending on your camera again, they come packed with settings and features that will help you take different kinds of shots under different conditions. There's auto, which is the default. As you can see from the picture here, that's the Galaxy. I have a choice of under more. I could take panoramic view. I can take night shots. I can take portrait or live focus, they call it, or sports and action shots. I can take food and macro photography, which is close-up photography. So depending again on the camera, the phone camera, there's many options for you to explore. It's unlimited, so you can have a actually fun time doing that.
And there's a whole bunch of apps as well that you can shoot within, and they will add certain different modes onto your shooting.
Well, we're getting into editing your photos, so.
Yeah, one thing we should mention as well is avoiding digital zoom, which if you imagine an old point and shoot camera, if anybody's old enough to remember those, when you used to zoom in, it would actually move the lens forwards and backwards when you zoom out. But now phones, some of them will have multiple lenses on the back. This one's very old school, so it just has the one, but you'll have, you know, 3, maybe 4 sometimes. And those are using different lenses, for one for tight shots, one for wide shots. Whereas if you're using a phone with just one lens and you swipe to zoom in, you're taking that same amount of pixels and just zooming in on them. So you really want to avoid that because it will end up with a low resolution image. So instead, just get yourself and the phone closer to what you're shooting rather than relying on zooming in where possible.
Yeah, and then you can crop it later. It's the best. I don't use my zoom ever, actually. I take the shot as is, and if I want it closer to my subject, I go close up or I crop it, because then it's sharp. Okay, next slide. Editing your photos. Next slide. Okay. No amount of editing will make up for poor composition or blurry photos. A lot of editing, though, can be handled by your existing smartphone photo editing software, which you can see in this picture. Most will allow you to crop, add filters, adjust the brightness, the exposure, contrast, saturation, hue, and change the white balance. So as you can see from the picture there, again, I would experiment. That's a brightness slider. You can brighten the picture or dull it down, etc. So that's just your in-phone app, right in your gallery.
And bear in mind as well, it's easy to duplicate the image. So if you're going to be going crazy with running effects on it, you might want to keep an original copy for other needs, and then just duplicate and do all of your oversaturating the blues of the background and bringing up the shadows in the foreground and stuff like that, so that you have the original still to go back to rather than losing all of those changes.
That's right. Yeah. Editing in your Instagram app. So again, you can edit directly in Instagram. You can add, again, filters, adjust alignment, brightness, contrast, sharpness, warmth, saturation, color, highlight, shadows, add a vignette. You can also choose a layout, like a collage of 3 photos. And you can also do a carousel of 10 images, like to produce a slideshow. But right in Instagram itself, as you can see from the photo, there's about 10 different editing filters and things like that right in there.
Yeah, just bear in mind that anything you edit in the Instagram app, that won't affect the original photo back in your photos album. So if you're posting to multiple different sites, you would have to edit in Instagram and then edit in Facebook or something like that, and then edit in the next one. So if you edit it in your original in-camera app, then that image can just be quickly exported to the various different sites that you're exporting it to.
Yeah, then you have your original. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Besides all of besides those two, there are free editing tools. I personally use, because I'm a graphic designer, I use Photoshop and Lightroom, which no, they're not free. But Snapseed is what I used to use, and it's great. And the picture that I've included here is, again, all the tools that Snapseed includes in their little app. Again, brightness and contrast and saturation and perspective, and again, a whole list of different things. And most of the editing tools will come with those basic things, plus filters. You know, if you want to add a filter of color or overlays or that kind of thing. These are all what am I trying to say? There's different ones. Snapseed has a lot of different tools. There are other tools for specific things like Facetune. That's more of an iPhone thing, isn't it? Where you can change a person's look add a filter to the face, and you can make the eyes bigger and the nose wider and that kind of thing. There's also artistic editing tools that you can make the photo look distressed and add frames. There's food editing software for people who take food photography, food pictures. And there are other tools that will make like collages. Do you want to add anything to that, Sam?
No, I'm out of my depth here. I've only ever used Photoshop and Lightroom. You know, I'm paying enough for them.
Ooh, you should. They're awesome. But if you don't have that, obviously, these are tools that are free, and they can do a lot of stuff that Lightroom and Photoshop can do as well. So.
And it is nice and easy having it in your phone, so you're not going from phone to laptop back to phone with some apps.
Yeah, and I always say too that Instagram has, you know, just like that touch feature on the phone. I feel like that's one of the most underutilized features of Instagram. Is the editing tools. And you know, because most people just see the filters and, you know, they might use that or not. I'm one of those people, because I feel like I want to take great photos, and so I never use filters, but I often will use a lot of their editing tools right in Instagram, because it's just super easy, especially things like brightening up shadows. So when there is a lot of contrast in the image and you want to flatten that out, like Sam was saying, for, you know, real estate, oftentimes, you know, they try to eliminate a lot of the harsh shadows and flatten that image out. There's a slider that you can just brighten up the shadows. You know, you can turn up the contrast, you can turn up the brightness, and all in such a way that, you know, usually, or it used to be that when you would mess with those kinds of sliders, then you'd really start distorting the image a lot, and you might get a lot of grain or noise in the image. But I find, and maybe it's because the image is so small, you don't really get that distortion unless you really push it, which you shouldn't. But you know, you have the ability to just really get in there and play with it. And I highly recommend even just starting with that, and then maybe explore some of these free apps too.
Yeah, just make sure it doesn't look too edited. So anybody who looks at it, it's going to be like, whoa, they went to town with all of the buttons there.
And a lot of people do that.
Well, yeah, but you know, that's an interesting kind of point, because I find that those highly edited photos, and I mean, this is a very subjective comment, but where the you know, saturation is just blown out, often gets more reaction, especially, I mean, when we talk about a platform like Instagram, right? Again, it's so small, and you're really just trying to catch people's eye, right? And so by maybe cranking that saturation up, you can get people's attention, and sometimes it works. And you know, I think that's a judgment call that that the photographer has to make.
Christine's just asked, if you take a photo in Instagram, is that the only way to edit it? Like if you edit a photo afterwards with Instagram? Basically, with Instagram, you can upload a picture. So you could have taken it in your regular phone app, or you could have taken it on a DSLR and then transferred it to your phone. And then you have the option to edit it in Instagram before you upload it.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Not everybody's going to be into this, but what smartphone cameras lack compared to DSLR counterparts can be made up with these accessories, which will remove some of the limitations, allowing your smartphone to take even better photos. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. because I've just taken photos in my smartphone and they've turned out very well with just the in-camera editing. But here we go. Here are some camera accessories. Lenses. You can actually purchase lenses to snap on or clip on over your existing lens. Some even offer interchangeable lens system where you can swap out the lenses quickly. But make sure though you choose a lens that works with your phone and for the kind of photography you wish to do. They need to work with your phone because, as I say, they snap on and they snap right over the existing lens. So if you buy an iPhone lens or a Galaxy, it may not work because the lens is in a different place. So you have to make sure it always works with your phone. And depending on the kind of photography you like to do, again, you can get a telephoto lens, which is good for like sports and wildlife and action. I think they come 2 times to 12 times zoom to get you really close to the subject. You can get macro lenses, which is good for flowers and bugs and small items like jewelry, with up to like about 21 times magnification for super close-ups. Or wide angle lens, which is great for architecture or interiors or landscapes with an overview, like an overview of 120 to 155 degrees field of view. Okay.
Yeah. With lenses, you get what you pay for, like if you're lucky. Like oftentimes, like your image is only as good as the worst piece of glass involved in it. So if it's too cheap, then the glass is going to be rubbish and you'll lose quality, or like you'll get a purple tinge around the edge of the items in your image. If you spend a lot of money, then you should be good, but not necessarily. So I'd go by like professional reviews of the items. Or if you're going to this level, then maybe you just need a DSLR type camera.
Yeah. Next. Tripods and mounts. Well, tripods hold your smartphone in place so that it keeps the camera stable and provides images that are not blurry. I don't use any kind of tripod or mount for my smartphone. I do for my DSLR, depending on what I'm taking a picture of. But in certain conditions, you may want to use a tripod, especially maybe low light. And if you want a specific composition in order, like a special position or an angle or something, you may want to use a tripod as well. You can shoot self-portraits as opposed to handheld selfies. Because you could use your timer and then whip around the other side and take the picture. Because I find the selfie lens is not as good as the lens on the other side can. So not as good at quality or resolution. It's also perfect for things like panoramas where you want to like take multitude of pictures in that kind of view, and then you can stitch them together. You couldn't do that with handheld because you'd be moving the view. And also macro. Of course, I've taken a lot of close-up shots of flowers just handheld smartphone, but it is easier to use a tripod because then you can position it and leave it and then shoot.
Yeah, anything with low light, you want to be keeping that camera as steady as is possible, because with low light, the shutter has to do a slower open and close than in bright light. So if there's any movement while that shutter is moving, then it's going to be blurry. The other thing you can do is, most people know it, but you can take a picture with the volume button on your phone. some people find there's less movement than having to actually, tap the screen. And also, if you have these wired Apple headphones, you can use the volume button to take a picture. So you can have it sat on a tripod or on a hoodie or your car windscreen or wherever it is stable. Have these plugged in, and then you can click the shutter button without having to touch the phone and wobble it whatsoever. And Veronica's got a question. She's sorry, Ben, do you want to jump in with that?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that tip was worth the price of admission. That's really cool. I had no idea about. It's basically like a shutter trigger or remote, right? For your iPhone. That's really cool. And like just to reiterate that, I think really scenarios that would come in handy would be like product photography, which, by the way, we will be doing a webinar on product photography. Be sure to check out the calendar of events to check that out and register. But yeah, like if you set up your camera on a tripod or your phone on a tripod, so that if you're switching out products or changing angles, you always have the camera set up and ready to go, and it makes it just really that much easier and more efficient.
Veronica says, when taking pictures with your phone, can these be used in all social media platforms? Yes. Basically, if you think of when you're taking a picture with your phone itself, that's saved in your phone. And so anything that accesses your phone, like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, can pull from your photos album.
Yeah, and I think that is also can be a bit of a misconception sometimes, that people think that their phone, because it's a phone, it doesn't shoot very good quality photos. But when in reality, they actually shoot very good, very high resolution photos. Oftentimes, especially like if you're shooting photos that are going to be used on your website, they're probably going to be like much larger than they need to be. And in which case you need to actually shrink them down. Yeah, it is a good question though. But certainly your phone will be capable for any social media platform that you're using.
Agreed. Lights. Again, these are accessories. I don't myself use them, but your mobile device probably has a flash or LED system built into it, but really it's not the most flattering. I don't think I've ever used my flash on my phone. It's really harsh and it's sort of, but there are other lights that you can get to enhance, maybe if you were doing beauty shots or that kind of thing, where it's a softer light. And the color temperature of some of these produces like more of a daylight balanced lighting, as opposed to what am I talking? Incandescent light indoors. Yeah.
And yeah, if you're doing product photography in particular, you might want to learn on Google about 3-point lighting, which is basically where you have 2 lights at angles and then a third from behind.
Yeah.
And whenever you're involving lights, you need to think more about the shadows than you do the actual light, because every time you add in a strong light source, you're going to get a strong shadow.
Okay. Storage. Storage. Storage can be an issue. I've never had a problem with it myself, because with my particular phone, I have a card on top of the card that I have. So I have 2 cards in my phone. It does pay to have a backup, and it adds way more storage to your phone if you do have a card. If like I have, the little disc at the scan disc at the top is what I have in my phone on top of my regular For iPhone or some other Android smartphones without storage expansion, you can get like a USB drive, which fits into your phone, and the other is a USB. That'll let you plug straight into the smartphone, into the charging port, and then instantly adds more storage to your phone. The other option is to invest in a mobile hard drive. Again, I don't do that because I don't need to. Or just download your pictures onto your computer every once in a while. Might probably be a good idea. Sam?
Yeah.
I know you
cloud
wanted to add
storage.
something on this.
Yeah. Cloud storage is sort of the standard now, which is where your phone automatically syncs everything that happens with it up to the cloud, which is just their bit of the internet. And in turn, your laptop can then pull the images back down from there. So in theory, everything's accessible on all of your devices, even though you just took it on one. And that doesn't take up storage space of the device. Although you are paying for the subscription for that, which is a couple of bucks a month, and the data usage, which in Canada can be like stupidly expensive. So you want to watch that your cloud syncing, probably depending on your phone subscription, that your cloud syncing is turned off on your cellular, but happens every time you walk into the house and it reconnects to Wi-Fi. It also means that when you lose your phone out in the middle of the lake, all of those images were updated last time it connected to the internet.
Yeah, true enough. Oh, and let's get really technical here. So if you want to keep all of those accessories together, you can get a camera rig or an accessory bar, which will house all of those lighting, microphone, lens, and camera all in one little place where you can hold it. Never used one myself. I think people, you guys, probably could use something like that if you're shooting video more often.
Yeah, it's funny, like, the smaller things get, the more accessories we have to buy, right? One thing that would be useful, if you have a light, have a separate stand for it so that your light can be off center to the camera, and that way you can move the light and shadows around without it being tied to the lens.
Okay. Now, how to visually tell your brand story. Visual storytelling involves passing a lot of information through a relatively simple visual aid. This has been the cornerstone of marketing for thousands of years. Visual storytelling involves the use of graphics, images, pictures, videos to engage with viewers in an effort to drive emotions, engage intercommunication, and motivate an audience to action. One of the best strategies is taking the time to understand your audience and what they're looking for, what emotions speak to them, and how it pertains to their lifestyle. People want to see the best version of themselves in your brand story. It makes them feel connected. Don't forget that you and your staff are also a big part of that story too. You will notice more engagement in photos of you. And I've noticed that with doing the audits and looking at people's Instagram accounts and Facebook accounts. There is tremendous engagement when people get a little bit more personal. And that's where the staff and you are important. The best brands weave their own values into an audience experience, ones that resonate with the audience's own values and personality. It's all about connection. When you successfully create a connection with your audience, many of them will stay loyal to you for life. This loyalty will help you increase your overall profits and help build a solid foundation of brand promises.
And yeah, don't forget that marketing is a direct reflection on your product and like your entire brand in general. So you want it to look as best as you can make it. You don't want viewers like thinking, well, if you're cutting corners on your marketing, where else are you taking shortcuts?
Right.
So yeah, make sure it's as good as you can make it. And yeah, that connection with people is great. Yeah, the audits that Karen mentioned, for anybody who doesn't know, small businesses can sign up for a free digital audit run by us. And what we do is we basically go through your whole digital footprint, and we kind of tell you where, you know, you're doing great here, but, you know, your logo is different in 3 different places kind of thing. And tell you kind of tips and tricks how you can, you know, make the best of your online presence. And we've got a couple of questions. Veronica says, sorry, I meant to ask, do these pictures need to be in a particular like JPEG for each social platform? So I presume you mean the size of the image that, you know, each platform wants you to upload. And yes, there is a minimum, but anything that you take with your phone is gonna be far bigger than that, and the app will automatically squish that down to the size that it wants to show. And yeah, back to you, Karen.
Oh, we're done. Anybody got any questions?
There's another one here. Nicole's asking, is it possible to have a recording of this emailed back to us as she had a lot of distractions? And yes, we are recording this webinar. It will be up on the Small Business Enterprise Center YouTube channel, and we'll try and follow up with you on that and get you a link. Plus, we'll share it on our Facebook Live that we do every Tuesday at 10. And yeah, that's about it for today. Unless there's any other questions.
I want to thank everybody for coming. That was great. I hope you got a lot of information out of it.
Yeah, make sure to check out our calendar. I'm doing a webinar on video, but it's not until January, I think. If you have any questions about photo or video in the meantime, feel free to get in touch with any of us. My email's sam@samevansmedia.com. Ben, remind us what the main digital service squad email is.
Oh, it's digital main st at Collingwood. I'm putting it in the chat. That's why I'm typing collingwood.ca. And there again is the link to book a consult, free consultations with our team to book that digital audit if you are eligible, or even just to get support, learn about the different programs that we've got. And we are eager to help in any way we can support you in your digital marketing and digital transformation.
And what is next week's
next week?
webinar?
Yeah, next week's webinar is going to be Google advertising. So getting started with Google advertising. We actually switched that around in the calendar because it's so timely. You know, we are heading into the holiday season. And so we wanted to, you know, give people those skills to start advertising to help you get your Google ads out and advertising for the holiday season. So definitely check that out. Again, it's another free webinar, and the links to register are on the Small Business Enterprise Center website. And
awesome.
That's it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks everybody again.
Have a great day.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.